Cheyenne, we wanted to take a minute from Ringside Sports just to acknowledge and send our condolences out to the community of Uvalde. We have no idea what they're experiencing, the devastation and just the tragedy. And so our thoughts and prayers go out to that community. But right before all that news came out yesterday, Ringside had actually posted something saying, we have to take a moment and just wonder if we're doing enough in our own community. And I think in times like this, when there's not much that we can do to help and support that community, we can take a moment in their honor and look at our own and say, are we doing enough for our kids? Are we working as a village? Are we operating as a community that cares about the kids of this community? And I think there's a trend that we really see across the board in Ringside as we're trying to support kids and athletes and coaches, schools, sports organizations, parents. We're hearing something over and over and over that there's not enough. And so I want to give you a couple examples of what we're really hearing in regards to that term, not enough. The first one I think we have to acknowledge is not enough participation. Since the COVID pandemic, I think it's really shaken up our community and our culture here, and people are not really engaging in ways with our kids as much as maybe we had before. And so there's not enough participation. You saw with our Cheyenne's Athletic Prep, our CAP program, we had a really hard time getting kids to attend this event. This brought together mentors of our community and our state, people that had influential impact in the sports and within our communities, and connecting them to kids so that they could listen to them. And time again from parents we heard, my kid doesn't need that. Well, I think that we have to start thinking, well, maybe my kid doesn't need that, but maybe my kid's friend does, or maybe my kid's teammate, or maybe my kid's classmate, maybe someone that my kid knows they can reach out and bring into these programs, into youth groups, into groups that can really support the kids of our community. We have to start working on our participation. I think that we also have to acknowledge that there's a problem with not enough participation in one of our high schools at South. We have a waiver problem, and maybe it's the solution isn't the waivers, but we have to get more kids to play sports at South. They can't operate an athletic program with not having enough kids in the program itself. And so we have to find a way to start getting more participation. I think if you talk to the city, they would say they don't have enough participation. They've got 3 softball teams, I believe, across the community for their 18-16U league. We've got high school softball going on. We've got to get those girls out to play softball. We've got to get those kids to engage with summer programs, with different types of organizations, different clubs. Get that participation up. Get kids involved with something in our community. We offer great programs. Let's get them involved. We also, I think, would hear, if we talk to some of these organizations, they don't have enough coaches. When we coached a 16-18U softball team for a couple years, my husband would often hear the same thing over and over and over again. You're like a father figure to me. A 16, 17, 18-year-old girl telling my husband that he's like a father figure to them. That's life-changing. We can never underestimate what can happen when we just give of our time and encourage kids to play sports and to show up and be that person that cheers them on. It's amazing things happen. And so coaching and officials is the big need, I think, in our community. If you have a passion about a sport, get involved with it. It often takes being an official a couple hours a week during one season. If you can give that, it can really have a huge impact on the youth of our community. I think we also have a parent involvement issue where we're hearing that there's not enough parents that care. Parent advisory committees are, we've heard of several parent advisory committee meetings where not one parent has shown up, not one. And what has happened, I think, is a lot of the loud, irrational parents we've allowed them to take over some of these organizations, our school board meetings, where all we're hearing is the same argument yelled at our school officials and the people that are trying their best to work for our kids. And it's an irrational argument that we just are over and over yelling at these people. We need to stop and start listening and engaging with them to start being the solution. And so enough parent participation by the ones that will actually engage. I think a lot of us parents that aren't going to scream and yell have been just pushed out of the system because we can't handle it. We're too busy. We've got too many responsibilities. And I think it's time that we re-engage and take back over these organizations and take back over a rational argument. We also, I think, can say we don't have enough conversation going on in our community. If you believe that there's not racism, you need to travel with some of our high school teams, and you'll see that the way some of our kids of color are treated, and you will become a believer in racism. And so I think that we need to have a conversation about it. We need to start engaging with it. And when we see this racism going on, we need more leaders, more mentors, more parent involvement of standing up and saying, that's not what we believe. There's not one of us that believes that racism is okay in Wyoming. I don't believe. And I think it's time for a change. It's time for a conversation of welcoming all of our kids, no matter what color, gender, race they are. Start welcoming them all and encouraging them all, because as a team, we're either going to succeed or fail together. I think there's not enough accountability. I think some people would say that in our schools that we're not holding maybe some of our coaches accountable enough for some of the decisions that they have on our kids. You know, a kind word to a coach goes really far, and there's coaches that are changing the kids of our lives of our kids in this community. But there's also some that need to be held accountable. We have coaches in this community that are doing it for the glory of being a coach and not for the opportunity to help and support our kids. And we need to make sure that we're holding those people accountable in our community. We also have to ask ourselves, are we doing enough with holding our kids accountable? And I think some of our schools would say that accountability with our kids is extremely hard. You hear of issues with attendance and grade issues. They are trying to promote sports, but they can't get kids to come to school. They can't get kids to pass classes. And I think that we need, as a community, to start holding those kids accountable, letting them fail, and then holding them accountable for it. And so I think that's, as a community, something that we can start working on, parents and coaches and kids and athletes all together. Maybe not enough encouragement. There's a lot of amazing people, a lot of really great nonprofits in our community, a lot of school workers, a lot of teachers, a lot of just organizations that are fighting for the people of this community. And they don't get a ton of appreciation. They don't get a ton of acknowledgement. They're not financially rewarded for this stuff. They're doing it, the sweat off of their skin, because they believe in our community. And the best thing that we can do is start encouraging them, especially our law enforcement, our fire departments, our civil servants, our hospital workers, encouragement. And a lot of the social media bullying needs to go away. It needs to be something that we don't tolerate in our community because we are above. And so when that starts happening and our police department isn't able to do the things they need because of the criticism and the pettiness that's going on, we need to stand up and say that's not okay. That's not Cheyenne. We can do better than that. You know, one of our pastors in our community, Jeff Manis, who recently moved out of Element Church, he once said, not everyone can give everything, but if we all give something, we can make a change in our community. And I think that's the call, and that's what we can do in honor of what's going down in Texas, is to all look at our lives and say, what can we do better? What can I give to make this a better community? What can I do to keep my eyes on kids? Maybe not even kids that I know, but maybe just making sure it's a next extra little safeguard for the safety and protection of our kids, because we can all do something. And when we all jump in and do something, we can accomplish great things. I hope you're with me, Cheyenne. Again, our thoughts and prayers go out to you all today. I know it hits you even hard in Cheyenne, Wyoming, but we can make some changes today that can make an impact and leave a legacy for the community in Texas that's really affecting us all. So let's do this together.